Get on your knees and wipe it up before your muddy boots ruin my Italian marble. The man in the $5,000 suit sneered intentionally, dropping his half-full espresso cup right at the woman's feet. The entire luxury lobby fell dead silent as dozens of wealthy executives turned to watch the exhausted woman in the faded, oversized sweater stare down at the dark puddle. But instead of crying or running away, her eyes locked onto the gold-plated name tag on his chest, and her hand brushed against the heavy black envelope hidden deep inside her cheap canvas tote bag. An envelope that held the power to destroy his entire life. The espresso seeped into the worn fabric of Nora's cheap sneakers. Above her, Julian, the reigning CEO of Vanguard Elite Estates, let out a dry, theatrical laugh. The Vanguard Elite building in downtown Chicago was a fortress of glass and wealth. Nora had walked through the revolving doors looking like she had just survived a 12-hour bus ride, her hair tied in a messy bun, dark circles heavy under her eyes. Julian had intercepted her immediately. "Service workers use the back alley," he spat, blocking her path. Before Nora could even reply, he tipped his cup. The dark liquid splashed across the pristine white floor. "Clean it, now," Julian commanded. A few junior executives nearby chuckled, their eyes filled with secondhand embarrassment. Nora didn't flinch. She slowly looked up from the floor to Julian's perfectly manicured face. She noticed the slight sweat on his brow, a subtle sign of stress that didn't match his arrogant posture. Something was wrong in this office. A young receptionist with a frayed collar, Liam rushed forward with a handful of paper towels. I'll get it, Mr. Sterling," Liam stuttered, his hands trembling as he knelt. Julian kicked the boy's hand away. "No, the new janitor does it, or you're both fired." Nora watched the boy flinch in fear. She slowly crouched down, taking the paper towels from Liam's shaking hands. "It's fine," Nora whispered to the boy. As she wiped the marble, her fingers brushed against a discarded receipt near Julian's expensive shoes. It was a catering bill for $10,000, billed to a corporate account that was supposed to be frozen. She silently memorized the account number. She knew every digit of Vanguard's financial architecture. Julian smirked, thinking he had won, completely unaware that the woman wiping his floor was the only reason his company still existed. "Make sure she takes the trash out on floor 7 when she's done," Julian barked over his shoulder as he marched toward the private glass elevators. Nora slowly stood up, tossing the soaked paper towels into a nearby bin. Liam stood up, his face pale. "I am so sorry about him," he murmured quickly, handing Nora a clean wet wipe for her hands. "If you need the janitorial closet, it's down the hall." Nora offered a faint, tired smile. "Thank you, Liam. You shouldn't risk your job for a stranger." Liam sighed, adjusting his cheap tie. "Nobody lasts long here anyway. Mr. Sterling has been firing people left and right to cut costs." That detail caught Nora's immediate attention. Vanguard Elite wasn't supposed to be cutting costs. It was supposed to be swimming in capital. She adjusted the heavy canvas bag on her shoulder. The black envelope inside felt like an anchor. "Why is he cutting costs?" Nora asked quietly. Liam glanced around nervously before leaning in. "He says the primary investor is delaying the $50 million expansion fund. But honestly, the math doesn't add up." Liam hurried back to his desk before Julian's assistant could spot him talking to the help. Nora walked toward the service hallway, but she didn't look for a mop. Instead, she slipped through the cracked door of the open plan accounting department. The room was chaotic, phones ringing off the hook, financial analysts looking terrified. She stood quietly in the corner, invisible in her faded sweater. Nobody paid attention to a woman who looked like she belonged in the background. On a nearby monitor, she saw a flashing red warning on a spreadsheet. It was a list of offshore wire transfers. The transfers were all routed to a shell company, and the authorized signature on the screen wasn't Julian's. It was a forged copy of Nora's own handwriting. A loud bell chimed through the office speakers, signaling an emergency all-staff assembly in the main showroom. Nora blended into the back of the crowd, watching as Julian took the center stage under a massive crystal chandelier. Julian clapped his hands together, his diamond watch catching the light. "Listen up. The representatives from the Apex Holding Group are arriving in 10 minutes, he announced. They are finalizing our $50 million grant today. I want this place spotless. He pointed a sharp finger into the crowd. And keep that new cleaning woman out of sight. Put her in the kitchen serving drinks. Nora was immediately shoved toward the catering carts by an anxious manager. She didn't resist. Putting on a black apron over her sweater, she began arranging crystal water glasses. This was the perfect vantage point. 10 minutes later, 3 men in sharp gray suits walked in. Julian greeted them with sickening sweetness, bowing his head and offering them prime seats around a massive architectural model of a new luxury resort. As you can see, gentlemen, construction is already 30% complete. Julian lied smoothly, pointing at the miniature trees. Nora handed a glass of water to the lead guest. She knew for a fact that not a single brick had been laid on that property. The land permits hadn't even cleared the city council. The lead guest took the water, not even looking at Nora. "We need to see the escrow receipts, Julian," the man requested firmly. Julian waved his hand dismissively. "My assistant will email them by noon. Let's focus on the design." Nora noticed Julian's left eye twitch. He was stalling. He didn't have the receipts. He was trying to get the guests to sign the final authorization before they realized the escrow account was completely empty. Nora reached into her apron pocket, pulling out her phone to send a single encrypted text message that would change the course of the meeting entirely. Before Nora could hit send, a loud crash echoed through the showroom. Liam had tripped over a rug, dropping a stack of thick blue folders all over the polished floor. The entire room froze. The VIP guests turned around frowning at the noise. Julian's face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He marched over to the young receptionist towering over him. "You clumsy, incompetent fool!" Julian hissed, his voice low but lethal. "Get out. You're fired." Liam scrambled to his knees, his eyes welling up. "Mr. Sterling, please, I just lost my balance. My mother's medical bills, I need this job." Julian sneered, kicking one of the folders away. "I don't care about your pathetic life. Security will escort you out." Nora stepped forward. She knelt beside Liam, calmly gathering the scattered papers. "He didn't damage anything," Nora stated, her voice quiet but carrying a strange commanding weight. Julian glared at her. "I told them to keep you in the kitchen. Are you deaf or just stupid?" Nora ignored the insult. As she stacked the papers, her eyes scanned the top document. It was a termination of lease agreement for the very building they were standing in. Julian was secretly selling off the company's core assets. "It seems," Nora murmured, tapping the paper, "that you have bigger problems than a dropped folder, Mr. Sterling, like Section 4, Clause B." Julian burst into laughter. "Did the janitor just try to read a legal contract? Get back to the sink before I have you arrested for trespassing." Nora stood up slowly, handing the neatly stacked folders to the terrified Liam. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't show an ounce of anger. "I can go back to the sink," Nora replied evenly, "but I highly doubt the water is still running, considering you haven't paid the utility bill in 3 months. Julian's face went completely pale for a fraction of a second before he recovered, masking his panic with a loud condescending scoff. "Get this crazy woman out of my sight," he yelled. A security guard aggressively grabbed Nora's arm, but she gently pulled away, fixing her sweater. "I know the way to the basement," she offered calmly. She walked away, leaving the VIP guests exchanging confused glances. The basement was cold, smelling of damp paper and old coffee. Nora walked past the cleaning supplies and headed straight for the restricted archive room. The electronic lock glowed red. She pulled a master override keycard from her pocket, the one item she never left home without, and swiped it. The light turned green. The door clicked open. Inside, thousands of files lined the walls. Nora didn't need to search long. She walked directly to the cabinet labeled Executive Accounts 2026. She pulled out the main ledger. Her eyes darted across the pages, her brilliant mind calculating the numbers in seconds. Julian had been siphoning millions into a private account in the Cayman Islands. He was planning to take the Apex Holding Group's $50 million grant today, declare bankruptcy tomorrow, and flee the country, leaving hundreds of employees like Liam completely ruined. The black envelope in her bag felt heavier now. It contained the original deed to Vanguard Elite signed by her late father, passing total ownership to her. She had stayed out of the public eye for years, trusting Julian to run the daily operations. That trust was a massive mistake. Suddenly, she heard heavy footsteps approaching the archive room. The door swung open. It was Liam, breathing heavily, holding a crumpled piece of paper in his shaking hand and looking at Nora with wide, terrified eyes. You shouldn't be in here," Liam whispered quickly, shutting the door behind him. "If Mr. Sterling catches you, he'll call the police." Nora closed the ledger and slid it back onto the shelf. "Why are you down here, Liam? I thought you were fired." Liam swallowed hard, holding up the crumpled paper. "I was packing my desk. I found this in the outgoing mail bin. It's a list of employee pension funds." He paused, a tear slipping down his cheek. "They're gone. All of them. He emptied our retirement accounts yesterday." Nora's expression hardened. Her patience had officially evaporated. Julian wasn't just stealing her money. He was destroying the lives of innocent people who relied on her company. "Liam," Nora asked softly, "what time is the final signing with the Apex guests?" Liam checked his cheap watch. "In 20 minutes. Julian ordered champagne for the whole executive floor. He's throwing a party to celebrate the new era." Nora adjusted her canvas bag. "Good. I love parties." She walked past Liam, her demeanor entirely shifted. The tired, hunched woman was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating force. "Wait, where are you going?" Liam asked, trailing behind her. "You can't go up there. The security team is guarding the glass doors." Nora didn't stop walking. She pulled her phone out and dialed a number. "It's me." She spoke into the receiver. "Initiate protocol Omega on the Vanguard servers. Lock down all external transfers." She hung up and turned to Liam. "Do you know how to operate the main showroom projector?" Liam nodded nervously, unsure of what was happening, as Nora handed him a small silver flash drive that she had kept hidden inside the black envelope. "Plug this into the master console," Nora instructed, her eyes locking onto Liam's. "Don't open it. Don't look at it. Just wait for my signal." Liam's hand shook as he took the small silver drive. "What signal?" he whispered. Nora offered a small, dangerous smile. "You'll know." She left the basement, heading straight for the executive elevators. This time, she didn't hide. She walked with purpose. When she reached the 7th floor, the heavy glass doors were blocked by 2 massive security guards. Beyond them, Nora could see the lavish party in full swing. Waiters carried trays of expensive champagne. Julian stood at the center, holding a crystal flute, laughing with the VIP guests. The final contract sat on a velvet pedestal, ready to be signed. "Stop right there," one of the guards commanded, stepping in front of Nora. "Cleaning staff is restricted from this floor." Nora didn't blink. She didn't step back. She reached into her bag and pulled out the heavy black envelope. She handed it to the guard. "Open it," she ordered. The authority in her voice was so absolute that the guard instinctively obeyed. He broke the wax seal and slid out a heavy watermark document. As he read the first few lines, his face drained of all color. He looked from the paper to Nora, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Ma'am, he stammered. "Step aside," Nora commanded. The guard immediately stepped back, forcefully, grabbing his partner's arm to pull him out of the way. The glass door slid open with a soft hiss. Nora walked onto the luxury floor just as Julian picked up a gold-plated pen ready to sign away $50 million of stolen money. "To the future of Vanguard Elite," Julian shouted, raising his glass high. The crowd erupted into applause, the VIP guests smiling warmly. Julian lowered his glass and pressed the gold pen to the paper. Just as the ink touched the dotted line, a calm, piercing voice cut through the room. "I wouldn't sign that if I were you." The applause died instantly. The crowd parted. Julian's head snapped up, his jaw clenching in fury as he saw Nora standing in the middle of the room in her faded sweater. Security, Julian roared, his face turning purple. I told you to throw this homeless trash out of my building. The guards at the door didn't move. They stood frozen, staring at the floor. Julian slammed the pen down. What is the meaning of this? You are ruining a multi-million-dollar acquisition. Nora walked slowly toward the pedestal. The VIP guests looked confused, stepping back from the table. There is no acquisition, Julian, Nora stated clearly, because you don't own a single share of this company to sell. Julian laughed aggressively, trying to play it off for his guests. She's insane. Someone call the police. Nora ignored him. She looked up at the projection booth above the showroom. Liam was standing there, visibly terrified, but holding his ground. Nora gave him a single nod, and the signal. Liam pushed the drive in. The massive screens around the room flickered. Suddenly, the elegant Vanguard logo disappeared, replaced by giant glaring spreadsheets, bank records, forged signatures, the Cayman Islands wire transfers. But the most damning image wasn't the stolen money. It was a live video feed of Julian's private office safe, which was currently being emptied by federal auditors. Julian stared at the screens, his champagne flute slipping from his hand and shattering on the marble floor. Turn that off, he screamed. Turn it off now. You can't turn off the truth, Julian, Nora replied. She stepped up to the pedestal, picked up the fraudulent contract, and ripped it in half. Julian lunged forward, but the lead VIP guest stepped between them, his friendly demeanor entirely gone. The man reached into his perfectly tailored gray suit and pulled out a silver badge. Actually, Julian, we won't be signing anything today, the lead guest announced coldly. Julian froze, his eyes darting between the badge and the guest. Your Apex Holding Group. No, Nora interrupted. They are forensic accountants from the Internal Revenue Service. I invited them. The entire room gasped. Julian stumbled backward, clutching his chest. Who the hell do you think you are? Nora slowly unzipped her faded sweater, revealing a simple, elegant black blouse underneath. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a solid gold keycard, slamming it onto the marble table. My name is Nora Vanguard. I own 75% of this firm. You work for me. Julian's knees literally buckled. He grabbed the edge of the table to keep from collapsing. The arrogant CEO, who had forced her to wipe up his coffee just hours ago, was now staring at the sole heir of the Vanguard empire. You've been in Europe for 5 years, Julian whispered in horror. I came back, Nora answered, her voice like ice. Because my accounts flagged a $10,000 catering bill on a frozen card. You got greedy, Julian. Julian looked wildly around the room for an escape, only to realize that every single elevator in the building had just locked down on Nora's command. The silence in the room was absolute. The wealthy executives who had laughed at Nora earlier were now staring at their shoes, terrified of making eye contact. Your access codes are revoked, Nora stated, pulling out her phone. Your corporate accounts are frozen. The employee pension fund has already been reversed from your Cayman accounts back to Chicago. Julian fell to his knees, his expensive suit wrinkling against the floor. Nora, please, he begged, all his arrogance vanishing into pathetic desperation. I built this place. I made you richer. Just let me walk away. Nora looked down at him, her expression completely unreadable. You didn't build anything. You stole from the people who actually do the work. She looked up at the projection booth. Liam, come down here. A minute later, the young receptionist stepped into the room, shaking slightly. Nora turned to the crowd. Liam is the new head of internal operations. If anyone has a problem with taking orders from him, you can leave your security badges at the front desk right now. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The IRS agent stepped forward, gesturing for Julian to stand up. Julian Sterling, we have a lot of paperwork to discuss, the lead agent said, securing Julian's arms. As Julian was escorted toward the service elevator, the exact elevator he had tried to banish Nora to, he looked back, his face pale and ruined. Nora didn't watch him leave. She turned to Liam, offering him a warm, genuine smile. "I believe you have some files to organize, Mr. Operations Manager." Liam wiped a tear from his eye and nodded proudly. "Right away, Miss Vanguard." Nora looked down at the exact spot where she had scrubbed the floor that morning, smiled coldly, and whispered, "The floor looks perfect now." Sometimes the people who look the least important hold the most power. True leadership isn't about wearing a $5,000 suit or humiliating those beneath you. It's about protecting the people who build your empire. Julian judged a book by its worn-out cover, and it cost him everything he had. How would you have reacted if you were in Nora's shoes? Would you have stayed quiet or fought back immediately? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where arrogance gets exactly what it deserves. Until next time, stay kind.